CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is an evidence-based psychotherapy treatment method focused on changing patterns of negative thoughts and unwanted behaviors through a hands-on approach, utilizing practical problem-solving methods. CBT explores the relationships between emotions, thoughts, and behavior. This treatment is goal-oriented with a structured approach designed to engage patients in a collaborative process. During this process, patients are encouraged to effectively identify and define their problems. They are then given applicable skills to utilize when confronted with these problems. CBT, while originally developed to treat depression, has proven to be an effective treatment for a myriad of disorders, ranging from obsessive-compulsive disorder to schizophrenia. History of the cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT was developed by Dr. Aaron T. Beck, a psychiatrist at the University of Pennsylvania. In the 1960s, Dr. Beck designed and implemented multiple experiments to test the psychoanalytic concepts of depression. Aaron Temenken Beck, an American psychiatrist born on July 18, 1921, he is regarded as the father of cognitive therapy and has published more than 600 professional articles and authored 25 books. In July of 1989, Beck was named one of the 5 most influential psychotherapists of all time by the American Psychologist. The history of cognitive behavioral therapy. Dr. Beck discovered that depressed patients often experience spontaneous streams of negative thoughts. He labeled these cognitions as automatic thoughts. Dr. Beck concluded that the patient's automatic thoughts fell into 3 categories: negative ideas about themselves, negative ideas about the world, and negative ideas about the future. Automatic thoughts. The cognitive triad of negative core beliefs. Negative views about the world. Everybody hates me because I'm worthless, which translates to negative views about the future. I'll never be good at anything because everybody hates me, which translates to negative views about oneself. I'm worthless. The self, I'm useless, the world and the others, the world is unfair, and the future, things will never work out for me. A cycle that is very easy to get trapped in. Aaron T. Beck's perspective. Dr. Beck stated that the cognitive model hypothesizes that people's emotions and behaviors are influenced by their perceptions of events. It is not a situation in and of itself that determines what people feel, but rather the way in which they construe a situation. Through this line of thinking, Dr. Beck designed the CBT model based on the notion that if he could change a patient's negative or distorted thought pattern, he could in turn improve their emotional and behavioral stability. Dr. Beck began to develop key ideas within his CBT model, denoting that different disorders were associated with different types of distorted thinking. These variances required detailed personal treatment strategies that reflected the specific needs of each patient. There are many different cognitive distortions that people may exhibit. Filtering, which is focusing solely on the negative and ignoring all of the positive aspects of life. Polarized thinking, a very black and white thinking, extremist views, not seeing the in-between gray. An overgeneralization, assuming that all experiences and people are the same based on one negative experience. Jumping to conclusions, being convinced of something with little or no evidence to support it. Catastrophizing, assuming the worst case scenario, magnifying the negative and minimizing the positive. Personalization, believing that you are at least partially responsible for everything bad that happens around you. Control fallacies, thinking everything that happens to you is either all your fault or not your fault at all. Fallacy of fairness, being too concerned over whether everything is fair. Blaming, pointing to others when looking for a cause of any negative event instead of looking at yourself and your own behaviors. Shoulds, holding tight to your personal rules on how people should or ought to behave. Emotional reasoning, believing, if I feel it, then it must be true. The fallacy of change, expecting others to change to suit your needs or desires. global labeling or mislabeling, generalizing one or two instances into an overall judgment using exaggerated and emotionally loaded language, always being right, believing that it is absolutely unacceptable to be wrong. Heaven's reward fallacy, believing that any good act on your part will be repaid or rewarded in some way or another. Disorders that can benefit from CBT treatment. CBT treatment covers a wide array of all disorders, from psychotic disorders to phobias to ADHD, eating disorders, and sleep problems. Each disorder requires specific treatment that the patient and therapist will work on together to decide what techniques work best for them and where the real root of their issues lie. What does cognitive behavioral therapy entail? CBT is a time-limited short program that typically consists of anywhere from 5 to 20 sessions. During these sessions, both the patient and the therapist engage in a collaborative process to identify and define the patient's problems. Once identified, the patient is encouraged to discover areas in their life where they experience triggers that often elicit negative thought patterns and unwanted behavior. Once the patient can clearly understand and outline their problems and what triggers them, the therapist can begin to provide the patient with skills to more effectively manage these issues. CBT emboldens patients to begin questioning upsetting thoughts and replacing them with more helpful ones. It also requires patients to begin recognizing when they're going to do something that will make them feel worse and instead doing something positive that will in turn help them in the long run. One of the most important factors of CBT is that CBT will only work if the patient is willing to change and put in the effort. How CBT is different than other therapies. CBT is pragmatic. It looks to identify specific problems with the goal of solving them in mind. CBT is highly structured. It discusses specific problems and goals are set for the patient to achieve, rather than a talk therapy session where patients speak freely about their life. CBT focuses on current problems based in the present. It focuses on how you think and act now. It does not focus on resolving past issues. CBT is collaborative. It is built upon a relationship between patient and therapist. The therapist doesn't tell you what to do, but rather guides you to self-discovery. They work with you to find strategies and techniques that address your current issues. I cannot stress enough the relationship between the patient and the therapist. It must be one built on a trusting foundation with understanding, good rapport, and a genuine caring nature. CBT techniques. There are many techniques that can be utilized within CBT therapy. Journaling, which is a great way to gather data about your moods and your responses to them. This way you can look back in your sessions with your therapist to go over what worked and what didn't. Try to unravel some of these cognitive distortions. Becoming aware of the distortions will give you a much better grasp on how not to become vulnerable to them. Cognitive restructuring. Challenge your harmful or destructive beliefs and restructure them. Exposure and response prevention. This works very well with patients who suffer from phobias. They expose themselves to whatever normally provokes that behavior and then try to elicit one of these techniques to then restructure their thinking. Play the script until the end. Finish a worst case scenario in your head to see that everything will likely turn out okay. Relaxed breathing and progressive muscle relaxation. Also things that you can engage your body to also re-alter your state of mind. Engaging your behavior and the body. This is important because these are very interconnected. CBT focuses a lot on mindful meditation, taking a moment to firmly ground yourself in the present. Successive approximation, breaking up whatever you have to do, which is a large task, into smaller steps, making it easier to accomplish, giving yourself a sense of pride. Writing self-statements to counteract negative thoughts. By writing things out, you begin to see what you truly and honestly believe. Once you see physically in front of you where your thoughts lie, replace these negative thoughts with positive, reassuring measures. Visualize the best parts of your day. Bring to mind all the positive things that you experienced today instead of focusing on the negative. Try and reframe your negative thoughts. Shift your focus from the negative to the positive. Cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the most effective forms of therapy. It is able to change patterns of negative thoughts and unwanted behaviors through a hands-on approach, utilizing practical problem-solving methods that patients can implement themselves into their daily lives. CBT provides patients with the skills needed to maintain stability in their life even after the program has ended. CBT focuses on the patient and their ability to regain control of their own life. Cognitive Behavioral Therapy by Victoria Franco.